She overheard the groom's plan for her baby, so she changed the wedding script. It was the kind of evening people remember for years, not because something beautiful happened, but because the universe gave a warning long before anyone recognized it. The Thompson house was loud, warm, and overflowing with joy. Aunts shouting over kitchen noise. Kids chasing each other through hallways. Maya's mom singing old gospel songs while stirring a pot of stew. The scent of fried onions, rice, and perfume blending together like chaos wrapped in love. And in the center of all this stood Maya Thompson. 29 years old, 6 months pregnant, her belly round beneath a soft mauve lounge dress. People always said Maya had a calm soul. But that night, she wasn't calm. She was tired. Exhausted in the way only pregnant brides can be. She sat at the edge of her childhood bed, lightly rubbing her belly in slow circles. Her wedding gown hung on the closet door, shimmering like it already knew the story would not end the way everyone expected. Her cousin Leah leaned against the doorway, chewing gum and wearing a mischievous grin. "You're just gonna sit here all night?" Leah asked. No special pre-wedding surprise for the groom? No heartfelt gesture. Maya laughed softly. "Leah, my back hurts. My ankles look like 2 balloons. I just want to sleep." Leah rolled her eyes dramatically. "Come on. Ethan is staying at the Ridgeview Hotel tonight, right? You bought him that watch. Take it to him yourself. It'll make him melt." "I'm tired," Maya repeated, but her voice softened. Leah walked in, hands on hips. "Girl, you're carrying his child. You're marrying him tomorrow. If anyone deserves to knock on his door tonight, it's you." Maya hesitated. Maybe Leah was right. Ethan loved romantic gestures. He always joked that she was too practical, and he wished she'd surprise him more. "Okay," Maya sighed finally. "But I'm not staying long." Leah clapped like she had won a game. "Good girl. Go knock the man off his feet." Ridgeview Hotel was quiet that night. A tall glass building glowing gold under the street lamps, elegant and calm. Maya stepped out of the Uber slowly, one hand under her belly, the other carrying a small gift bag. At the reception desk, she smiled politely. "Hi, I'm looking for Ethan Rhodes. He checked in earlier tonight." The receptionist typed, smiled, and said cheerfully, "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Rhodes arrived at 8:12 p.m. He went up with his..." She paused slightly. "With his financial consultant." Maya blinked. "His consultant?" "Yes. Hannah Rivera. They said not to disturb them." Maya felt something shift inside her, like a thread snapping quietly. Still, she forced a smile and walked toward the elevator. Maybe they were going over paperwork. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Maya was overthinking. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirror-finish elevator doors. Her eyes looked tired, too tired. The doors opened on the 15th floor. It was silent, carpeted, cold. Maya walked slowly, passing room 1504, 1506, 1508, and then she stopped. Room 1510. Because behind that door, there were voices. First muffled, then clearer. A woman laughing. Then Ethan's voice. But not his soft, gentle tone. No, his confident, slick, boardroom voice. "She'll sign tomorrow," Ethan said. "She always trusts me. And once she signs, this whole mess becomes her responsibility." Maya froze. Her heartbeat wasn't just fast. It was loud. Hannah's voice followed, amused and warm. "As long as you get her signature before the ceremony starts, the baby clause goes into effect. Investors will bite. They love the family man image. The baby." Maya instinctively placed a hand on her belly. Ethan continued. "She won't understand the documents anyway. She's emotional, exhausted. She'll sign anything if I say it's for the future." Hannah laughed again. Then there was a sound Maya couldn't mistake. A kiss. Then another. Then, a soft thud against the wall. "Oh, Ethan," Hannah whispered, close enough that Maya felt it in her bones. "You're lucky she's so naive." Maya's chest tightened. Her throat closed. She covered her mouth before the scream could escape. Her hands trembled. But her mind did not. Because in that moment, something inside Maya went cold. Icy, focused, awake. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and pressed record. She held the device steady, even as tears blurred her vision. She recorded. The laughter. The kissing. The moans. Ethan's voice bragging. Hannah's voice scheming. Every word about the baby. Every lie. Every betrayal. 6 minutes. 6 minutes that would change everything. When Maya stopped the recording, she backed away from the door slowly. Like a ghost haunting her own life. She walked to the elevator. Down the lobby. Into the Uber. The driver looked back at her worried. You okay, ma'am? Maya stared straight ahead. I will be, she whispered. Her hand rested on her belly. Not with joy, but with protection. Because she understood something now. Tomorrow. She wasn't walking into a wedding. She was walking into war. Maya didn't cry in the back of that Uber. Most people imagine heartbreak as loud, screaming, sobbing, gasping for air. But real heartbreak, the kind that cuts all the way down to the bone, is quiet. And the silence inside that car was the kind of silence that only comes when a person finally sees the truth of their life, without any of its disguises. Maya sat there with her hands resting over her belly, fingers gently pressed against the place where her child slept. She wasn't shaking anymore. She wasn't breathing fast. Her body was calm, but her mind was spinning like a storm hidden beneath still waters. She replayed the recording once. Then again. Then again. Every word felt heavier than the last. Her name spoken like a transaction. Her baby treated like a tool. Her trust turned into leverage. Her future planned by two people who thought she'd never find out. The Uber driver kept glancing at her through the mirror, unsure if he should say something. But there was something in her expression, still, blank, unreadable, that made him stay quiet. When the car pulled into her parents' driveway, Maya didn't move at first. She just sat there, hands still, breathing slow. Then she whispered a thank you, stepped out, and felt the cold air hit her face like a bucket of water. The Thompson house was dark now. The same house that had been bursting with noise only hours earlier was silent except for the refrigerator hum and the soft ticking of the living room clock. Everyone was asleep. Everyone except her. Maya walked down the hallway toward her childhood room, each step feeling heavier than the last. She closed the door slowly behind her, set the gift bag on the dresser, and finally, allowed herself to exhale. She looked at her own reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen, her cheeks pale, her mouth tight. Not from tears. From realization. She sat on the edge of the bed, same spot as earlier, but now the room felt unfamiliar, as if the floorboards had shifted, as if the air itself knew something had changed. Slowly, she unlocked her phone and opened the recording again. She pressed play. The laughter spilled into the room. The kisses. The whispers. The moment Ethan mentioned the baby clause. The moment Hannah called her naive. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She listened. Because this wasn't pain anymore. This was evidence. When the recording finished, Maya opened her laptop, the old one she used for freelance work, and plugged in a small memory card she kept for emergencies. She transferred the file once. Then again. Then she emailed it to herself. Then she uploaded it to a locked folder she used only for important documents. She didn't lose control. She gained it. The house stayed quiet around her. The minutes passed. Then the hours. Her back ached. Her belly tightened now and then in small false contractions, normal, the doctor had said, but that night they felt symbolic. Like her body itself was reacting to betrayal. At one point she walked to the bathroom, splashed water on her face, and stared at herself again. She didn't look like a bride. She didn't look like a woman who'd been betrayed. She looked like someone thinking, planning, awakening. Maya dried her face, returned to her room, and sat on the floor with her back against the bed. For the first time since hearing Ethan's voice through that hotel door, she allowed herself to speak out loud, barely above a whisper. She wasn't speaking to herself. She was speaking to the child inside her. A promise. A vow made before dawn. She would not let anyone use her baby. She would not let anyone put dead in her hands and call it love. She would not become a signature on a paper designed to break her. And she would not walk into that wedding blind. The clock hit 3:17 a.m. That's when her phone buzzed softly. She looked down. Not Ethan. Not Leah. Her attorney. A man who had handled some paperwork for her mother months ago, someone she trusted enough to call at this hour. She hadn't realized she'd sent him the recording until she saw the email chain. Her fingers must have moved on their own when she backed the file up. His message was short. Maya, call me. Urgent. Her hands tightened around the phone. She dialed. He answered on the first ring, voice low, serious, as if he already knew something was terribly wrong. She told him everything, not with drama, not with panic, but with precision. She told him what she heard. What they said. What the consultant planned. What Ethan intended to make her sign. What the baby clause meant. What tomorrow's ceremony could legally lock her into. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. The kind of pause lawyers make when they know the truth will hurt. Then he confirmed it. If she signed anything tomorrow, anything, the liability would fall on her. Her name. Her future. Her child. And Ethan? He would be protected. Because the documents weren't written for her. They were written to save him. Maya closed her eyes. Then she asked the question that would change everything. Can the license be voided? The attorney hesitated. Then he said yes, but only if she acted fast. Only if she did it before sunrise. Only if she understood her life might explode when she revealed the truth. Maya said she understood. Then she whispered something the attorney never forgot. I'm going to the wedding. But not to marry him. When she hung up, the sky outside had begun to lighten. Not sunrise yet, just that first cold hint of blue that comes before morning. She sat by the window, hands folded over her belly, and watched the world shift from night to day. She didn't look broken. She looked resolute. A woman who had stepped into the fire and come out of it forged. Around 6 a.m., Leah knocked softly on her door asking if she wanted breakfast. Maya said she was fine. Her voice was steady, so steady that Leah didn't sense anything wrong. Her mother was already in the kitchen humming, preparing tea and checking on the dress one last time. Everyone thought Maya was quiet because of nerves. Because of the wedding. Because she was a pregnant bride hours away from saying I do. But Maya wasn't nervous. She wasn't scared. She wasn't unsure. She had clarity. Clarity sharper than anything she had ever felt in her life. When she finally stood from the bed, smoothed her dress, and looked at her reflection one last time, she saw a woman who wasn't walking toward her wedding. She was walking toward justice. Toward truth. Toward her own freedom. And before she left the room, she whispered one final promise to her child. No one will ever use you. Not even your father. And just like that, the sun began to rise. And Maya began her war. Morning arrived as if nothing in the world had gone wrong. Birds were chirping. Ants were already arguing over flower arrangements. Someone downstairs was blasting cheerful wedding music as though the universe had planned a celebration without asking how Maya felt. But Maya woke up with a different kind of light in her eyes. Not joy. Not hope. Not even grief. Something steadier. Sharper. A calm that didn't belong to a bride, but to someone walking toward a truth everyone else was still blind to. She moved quietly through the house, and everyone mistook the silence for nerves. They told her she looked radiant. That she had the glow. That today would be the best day of her life. She smiled only enough to avoid questions. Inside, her thoughts were iron. She had replayed the recording twice at dawn, just long enough to make sure she hadn't imagined it, but not long enough to break down. Her father came into the room at one point, holding a small breakfast tray. He assumed she was stressed about the ceremony, so he reminded her that Ethan loved her and that the future would be beautiful. She thanked him with a nod, and said nothing else. Because he didn't know. No one knew. Downstairs, hair and makeup artists fussed over her, thrilled with how serene she appeared. One of them whispered that she had never seen a calmer bride. If only they knew. While they worked, Maya stared straight ahead. Not at the mirror, not at her reflection, but at the bouquet resting on the table beside her. The same bouquet that would soon carry something hidden inside it. something she had prepared before anyone else woke up. A device that would speak louder than she ever could. By mid-morning, guests started arriving at the venue. Photos were being taken. Decorations were being adjusted. And Ethan stood outside the entrance, smiling, greeting people, shaking hands like a man convinced the world adored him. He had no idea what waited on the other side of the aisle. And Hannah arrived in a fitted champagne dress, pretending confidence while avoiding Maya's family with practiced ease. She even waved politely at the photographer, who assumed she was just another guest. But Maya noticed her immediately. The glance was quick, just a flicker, but it said everything. I see you. I know everything. And I am not afraid. Then Maya lowered her eyes again, calm as water before a storm. Because the wedding morning wasn't a celebration. It was the quiet before a reckoning. And she was ready. The pastor's voice drifted through the hall, calm and warm, completely unaware that the ground beneath him was about to crack open. He spoke about trust, about loyalty, about the beauty of two lives merging into one. And while the guests nodded emotionally, Maya stood perfectly still, so still it was almost unnatural. From a distance she looked serene, but the Neradora Sabia, her calm was the kind found before a storm. A calm carved out of resolve, not peace. Ethan kept glancing at her with a confident little smile, the same smile he used during business deals he believed he had already won. To him, Maya's silence meant obedience. To him, her lack of tears meant ignorance. He had no idea. When the pastor finally closed the opening prayer and invited the couple to step forward, a soft murmur moved through the crowd. Everyone leaned a little closer, eager for the vows. Ethan straightened his suit, lifted his chin, and inhaled as though preparing to perform a speech he didn't deserve. But Maya didn't move. She just looked at him slowly, steadily, long enough for his smile to falter for a split second. He recovered quickly, pretending not to notice his own discomfort. The pastor gestured again. This time Maya took a step, but not toward Ethan. She stepped slightly to the side, shifting her weight, adjusting the bouquet in her hands. A tiny movement, invisible to most. But to the Neradora, it was the beginning. Her father watched from the first row with pride, completely unaware of the avalanche about to fall. Hannah watched too, barely breathing, her jaw tight, her eyes flicking between Ethan and Maya with increasing panic. Even seated, her entire body was tense. The Neradora via que Hannah estaba pronta para correrse algo sucederado. The pastor began the vows. First Ethan's. He spoke confidently, smoothly, with rehearsed tenderness. Words about devotion, partnership, the baby, their future, words that tasted sweet only because the truth behind them was rotten. Guests sighed. Some dabbed their eyes. But Maya didn't react. Not once. And that, more than anything, made Hannah's hands shake. When the pastor turned to Maya, asking her to prepare for her vows, she lifted her face slowly, like someone who had just remembered she wasn't here to promise anything. She took one tiny breath, then another. And then, very gently, she moved her thumb along the bouquet stem. The Neradora sabia o que ela estava fazendo. Adavando o dispositivo. A soft click, barely audible. At first, no one noticed the shift in the speakers. A faint hum. A small crackle. Ethan turned slightly confused. Hannah's head snapped up. The pastor paused. And then the recording began. Not music. Not a prayer. Not vows. A voice. Ethan's voice. Cold. Calculating. Laughing. It filled the church like poison released into clean air. People froze. The words poured through the speakers, every sentence carved with betrayal. How Maya would sign anything if he presented it gently. How the baby made her easier to control. How the ceremony wasn't about love, but about transferring his financial mess onto her name. How investors were excited to see him secure his family man image. Guests gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others turned instinctively toward Maya, expecting her to break. But she didn't. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She simply watched Ethan, silent and steady, as the truth he created destroyed itself. The recording continued Hannah's laughter, her whispering encouragement, her promise that Maya was naive enough to sign anything. Hannah's face turned white. Her clutch slipped from her hands. She didn't dare move. Ethan lunged forward, trying to grab the microphone. But Maya stepped back before he could reach her. She didn't speak, didn't push him, didn't even raise her voice. She simply let the recording play. Every kiss, every moan, every scheme, all echoing through the holy space meant for vows. When the audio finally ended, the silence that followed was louder than the recording itself. No one breathed. Not the pastor. Not the guests. Not even Ethan. Maya lifted her chin just slightly. And only enteo elefalu. Neo gritu, neo tremu. She explained, calmly, that the recording was from the previous night at the Ridgeview Hotel. She explained that Ethan's financial consultant, seated right there in the second row, had spent the night with him. She explained that the documents she was supposed to sign that morning were part of a fraudulent attempt to transfer debt under the guise of marriage. Her voice didn't break once. Because she wasn't speaking as a bride. She was speaking as a woman who had been underestimated one last time. The guests erupted, shock, outrage, voices rising all at once. Hannah tried to stand, but people around her stared at her like she was the villain in the worst kind of story. Ethan reached for Maya's arm as if he could salvage something. But she stepped back again. Not with fear. With finality. She looked at him the way someone looks at a stranger. Then she said, not loudly, but clearly enough for the entire room to hear, that she would not allow her child to be used as a shield for someone else's lies. And she walked. Not fast. Not trembling. Just steady, steady, steady. Down the same aisle she had entered minutes earlier. Guests rose instinctively as she passed, not in celebration, but in awe. The Narradora Sabia. This wasn't a bride leaving a wedding. This was a woman reclaiming her life. And every single camera in that room captured it. Because everyone knew. This moment would never be forgotten. The silence after the recording ended didn't feel like silence. It felt like an explosion that no one could hear, only feel. First, there was Maya. Standing steady at the altar. Microphone in one hand, bouquet in the other, her voice still echoing in the last row. Then there was Ethan. The man who loved to control every detail. Frozen, blinking, trying to understand how the world collapsed in less than 1 minute. He whispered her name softly at first, too soft for the microphone. But the Narradora Lembradiso. Softness was the last thing anyone expected from him in that moment. Maya, we can talk about this. No one heard him clearly. Everyone was too busy gasping. Phones lifted everywhere. You could hear the artificial shutter sounds of 100 cameras capturing his humiliation. Hannah was the first to react. She stood abruptly, clutch falling from her hand, landing on the floor with a soft metallic clink. Her face, usually so perfectly arranged, was now drenched in guilt and panic. Some guests whispered, "That's her. That's the woman?" Oh my God. 2 older women in the same row physically scooted away from her. One muttered, "Shameful." Hannah looked cornered, exposed, like someone who wanted to disappear into the floor. Ethan stepped forward, reaching for Maya's arm, voice cracking. "You misunderstood. The call, the paperwork." But Maya pulled her hand back gently. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just firmly. And somehow that hurt him more. The pastor, shaken, closed his booklet slowly. He tried to maintain dignity, but even he could not stop looking at Ethan with disbelief. "Maya," he said softly, "would you like to continue the ceremony privately or—" But Maya shook her head. "No, Pastor. There is no ceremony. There was never supposed to be one." A wave of whispers spread like a windstorm. Ethan's mother, dignified, proud, always composed, suddenly stood up and pointed at her own son. "What have you done?" she demanded loudly. Ethan flinched. "And Mom, let's talk outside." "No," she snapped. "You humiliated this woman. You humiliated our family. And for what? For money? For a business deal." Her voice trembled with fury. Guests had forgotten to breathe. Hannah tried to quietly step sideways toward the aisle, but someone in the crowd said loudly, Don't let her leave. Another voice echoed. She's the one from the recording. Someone even started filming her directly, zooming in like she was the villain of a documentary. Hannah froze again like prey. Ethan turned toward her, eyes wide with ruined calculation. Hannah, don't. But she didn't wait. She grabbed her clutch from the floor and bolted toward the side exit, heels clacking like gunshots. Several guests turned physically in their seats to follow her escape with their phones. One man shouted, "She's running because it's true." The chaos was complete now. Maya stood in the center of it all, impossibly calm. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just watched the truth unravel exactly as it needed to. Some guests, older aunties, concerned neighbors, ran to her side, whispering, "Are you okay, my dear? You're stronger than you think. God bless your child." But Maya only nodded politely, thanking them softly. Ethan, meanwhile, walked toward her again, this time desperate. "Maya, please, listen to me. I can fix this. I can explain." The narradora lembra destatal. He still believed he was in control. He still believed he could redirect the narrative. He still believed the bride he deceived would somehow protect him. Maya looked him in the eyes for a long, quiet moment. Then she said the words he never expected. "You didn't just betray me, Ethan. You tried to use my child as a shield." He swallowed hard. "Maya, please." But she turned away from him slowly. Not dramatically. Just decisively. And that was the moment Ethan broke. The guests could see it. His knees weakened. His chest rose and fell too quickly. His hands shook. The pastor approached him like someone approaching a wounded animal. "Son, sit down. This is not the moment to plead." Phones recorded. The internet, though no one knew yet, was minutes away from meeting this disaster. Someone whispered, "He's finished. His company is done. No investor will touch him after this." Someone else whispered, "She saved herself. And her baby." Ethan sat, head in hands, sweat dripping down his temples, his entire posture collapsing like a tower of cards. Maya walked down the aisle, slowly, with dignity, with silence. And every guest in the room stood, not out of celebration, but out of respect. She did not look back. Not once. And as Ethan stood there, breathless and cornered, with every eye in the room watching him fall apart, something became painfully clear. The truth didn't need volume, or anger, or a fight. It only needed light. And in that moment, under the gold glow of the wedding aisle, every lie he had told finally ran out of places to hide. But the damage he caused? That would continue echoing long after the ceremony ended. Maya didn't run. She didn't collapse. She didn't crumble under the weight of what had just happened. She simply walked out of the venue as if the air outside belonged to her again. Her steps were slow, steady, controlled, almost too controlled for someone who had just detonated her own wedding. Her family hurried behind her, unsure whether to comfort her, hold her, or give her space. But one look at Maya's face told them everything. She was done being fragile. Her mother reached her first, breath uneven. "Maya, sweetheart, we're right here." Maya inhaled deeply, grounding herself. "I'm not going back inside," she said quietly. No one argued. No one tried to convince her otherwise. Because something about her calmness felt stronger than any breakdown could ever be. Her father guided her to the car with a gentle hand on her back. Not because she seemed weak, but because he finally saw how much weight she had been carrying alone. The drive home was silent, heavy, almost sacred. City lights passed through the window, casting shifting patterns on Maya's face. Her hand stayed on her belly the entire time, as if she were shielding her baby from every dark thought trying to rise inside her. She didn't replay the scene in her head. There was no need. The truth had already burned itself into her memory. Instead, she stared at the night sky and breathed slow, steady breaths. It wasn't relief. It wasn't peace. It was survival. When she walked into her home, the atmosphere was different. The decorations from the pre-wedding celebrations were still scattered around, ribbons, half-empty punch bowls, forgotten gifts. But the house didn't feel festive anymore. It felt honest. Maya removed her veil, her bouquet, her shoes. Then she sat on the couch carefully, her back straight, hands resting over her stomach. Her mother sat beside her. Leah knelt in front of her, tears already streaming down her face. No one asked, "Are you okay?" No one said, "You're strong." They simply stayed. And that was enough. A single tear rolled down Maya's cheek. Not from heartbreak, but from the realization of how close she came to tying her future to someone who never intended to protect it. She wiped the tear away before it could fall. "I protected my baby today," she whispered. And her mother began to cry softly, because those words meant Maya finally understood her own worth. While Maya sat quietly in her living room, the world erupted online. A guest video of the wedding confrontation spread like wildfire. First among friends, then through group chats, then across social media. People didn't know Maya personally, but they knew bravery when they saw it. Comments flooded timelines. "She saved herself and her baby. This woman is a hero. That groom deserves every consequence." Meanwhile, Ethan was drowning under the fallout. Investors withdrawing, business partners calling in panic, reporters demanding statements. He tried to claim misunderstanding, miscommunication, misinterpretation. But lies don't survive sunlight. And Maya had opened every window. 2 days later, a different kind of beginning. Maya stood in the kitchen wearing an oversized sweater, hair in a loose bun. Her phone buzzed with a new email. Subject: "I saw your wedding video." It was from a woman she had never met. Someone describing her own silent suffering, asking for guidance. More messages followed. Dozens. Then hundreds. Stories from women who had been manipulated, used, silenced, trapped. Maya wasn't trying to become anyone's inspiration. She just didn't want other women to walk alone. So she created a small online space. "Tell me your story. There's no shame here." Within days, it grew into a community. Not followers. Not fans. Survivors. 2 months later. The labor was long, exhausting, intense. But when Maya heard her daughters cry for the first time, something in her chest opened. A quiet, powerful certainty that everything she lost had made room for everything she truly needed. She held the tiny baby against her chest and whispered, "You're safe now. We're safe." Her world had broken. But something new, something whole, had taken its place. Weeks later, Ethan asked to see the baby. Maya thought about it for a long time. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. In the end, she allowed it. He arrived looking nothing like the man she once planned to marry. Thinner, tired, stripped of the arrogance he used to wear like a second skin. He stepped inside, eyes dropping to the sleeping baby in Maya's arms. When she let him hold Ariana, his hands trembled. Not from love. From realizing the life he could have had. When he tried to speak, to apologize, to justify, to rewrite the past, Maya lifted a hand gently, stopping him. "Don't explain," she said. "Just be better than this." He swallowed hard, defeated. He returned the baby to her carefully. Maya walked him to the door. Before he stepped out, she said, "I forgive you. Not for you. For her." Then she closed the door. Softly. Firmly. Finally. Inside the quiet house, Maya held Ariana close, swaying gently. No wedding. No vows. No promises broken. Just a mother and her child. Safe, whole, building a life that no betrayal could touch. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt peace. Real peace. A peace she had chosen with her own hands. A peace she had earned. And that is how Maya walked away from the lies that were never meant to hold her. And stepped into a life she built with her own strength. If you felt something watching this story, if you rooted for her, if you believe every woman deserves the courage to choose herself, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, so you never miss another story like this one. Thank you for watching. More stories are on the way.